So a few weeks ago, Sony announced a very exciting new camera called the Sony ZV-E1. And essentially this camera is like the ultimate hybrid trio where they've taken the small compactness of the ZV series, they've taken the video quality and low light capabilities of the Sony a7S III or FX3, and they've added the AI features that we've seen in the Sony a7R5 and more. And this is all for a very affordable price of $2,200 US. Now, in the few weeks that I've had the Sony ZV-E1 and I've been able to test it out, there's definitely been amazing features and I'm very excited about the camera, but as well, I've realized a few things that are maybe cons about the camera, and that's why in this video, I specifically want to talk about who is the ZV-E1 not for, because I would hate for you guys to get excited and to order the camera and then to start using it and to realize that, these things are gonna affect me being able to use this camera. So the first thing that I've noticed about the Sony ZV-E1, which was a little bit frustrating for me, maybe I'm more of an OG filmmaker, but I love to have 3 dials. So I love to have one dial in the front for shutter, the second dial for aperture, and then the back dial for ISO, because then with 3 fingers all at the same time, I can adjust these. Now with the Sony ZV-E1, you only have one dial, so it's a lot harder then to go through the settings. You basically have to rely on the LCD screen to be able to touch and press. Now you might be able to adjust some custom buttons to make it work for you, but off the bat, that was one thing that was like, I wish there was 3 dials. I get it, you can't put everything into one camera, especially when it's that small. But for me, as a run and gun filmmaker, someone who needs to make adjustments quickly, I find that that was a little bit of a con for me. The second con that I saw in the ZV-E1 was the fact that it only has one memory card slot. Now, if you are creating content for yourself and it's not the end of the world if something happens to that footage or the card is corrupt, that's okay. But for example, if you're a wedding filmmaker or you're documenting events that aren't gonna be able to be repeated again, you always wanna have dual card slots. Having 2 recordings going at the same time, because if something happens to one memory card, at least you have a backup. Now, the ZV-E1 doesn't have that, so that's definitely something to think about if you are a wedding filmmaker or a documentary filmmaker, or basically anyone who's filming something that just can't be redone. You can't repeat the moment because it's over. You gotta think about that when you have only one memory card slot and the issues you might face with that. And the third con that a lot of people already started talking about is overheating. If you're out shooting, again, a real-time event, you need to be able to document the event, and then your camera starts overheating again. That's not gonna work for you. And the problem with Sony ZV-E1 is that it's a very small, compact body with no fans, and when you're taking, the sensor of a Ferrari from the Sony a7S III or the FX3 and putting into the small little camera body, it's gonna start overheating. Now, Sony has said that the overheating should not be a problem if you're, indoors, air conditioning. And for me personally, it probably won't be a problem living in Scandinavia where it doesn't get warm. But then if you're from a place like Florida or California or Texas where it gets hot, that's gonna be a problem. You don't wanna be on a wedding shoot right in the middle of the ceremony as the couple's about to kiss and then you see that the camera overheats. It's gonna be a problem. So based on these 3 cons, the lack of 3 dials, the 1 memory card slot, and the overheating, who is the ZV-E1 not for? Well, I kind of mentioned already earlier, but basically I would say anyone who's a filmmaker who's documenting anything that can't be repeated. You're doing real-time events like a wedding or an event, or you're interviewing someone you're just not gonna have the opportunity to interview them again. Do not get the ZV-E1 because A, you don't want a memory card going corrupt or your camera overheating. If you're shooting, for example, the ceremony of a wedding and there's the kiss moment, you're not gonna be able to say, hey, pause for a moment, my camera overheated, let's just take a little break. You're gonna miss that moment. So you're not gonna wanna use the ZV-E1 if you're shooting stuff like that. But if you are a vlogger or a content creator where it's not so time sensitive, and if something like that did happen, it wouldn't be the end of the world, I would highly recommend the Sony ZV-E1. The fact that it's only $2,200, it's very small, compact, it's got great video capabilities, and all these new AI features. There's just so many crazy new features in the Sony ZV-E1, like the dynamic active stabilization, which looked literally like a gimbal. You have the auto framing stabilizer, which you can use to kind of gimbal follow someone. They're gonna always stay in the middle, or you can use it to track and follow yourself to make it look like you're being filmed by someone, even though you're not. Or there was even the, AI microphone. So basically, depending on whether the camera's pointed at you and it recognizes your face, it's gonna use the front mic, or if it doesn't see a face, it's gonna use the back mic, and it's able to kind of pick up where the audio is coming from, which is really important if you're a vlogger, because a lot of times we're filming ourselves and then all of a sudden we're doing POV, So there's a lot of really great AI features that they've built into the Sony ZV-E1 specifically for content creators and vloggers. So remember that. The Sony ZV-E1 is not for filmmakers doing documentaries or weddings or commercials. The Sony ZV-E1 is for vloggers and content creators. So don't get those mixed up, because I would hate for you to buy a camera that you think is gonna serve you well, and then you have a very awkward moment at a wedding or during an interview when your camera overheats. So those are my thoughts on the Sony ZV-E1. Hopefully they help you out. We're out of here.